I still sometimes wake up in a cold sweat, gasping for air, the phantom sensation of my throat closing around a foreign object overwhelming me. It's been months, but the memory is as vivid as if it happened yesterday. My own sister, the person I shared a womb with, nearly killed me, and she called it a joke. A joke that landed me in the ER, struggling for my life, and left me with medical bills that would make a small car payment look like pocket change. Was I wrong for what I did next, for turning her joke into a very expensive lesson? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? Let me take you back to before all of this madness, before my relationship with my sister, Clara, completely shattered. We grew up pretty close, or at least I thought we did. Clara was always the more impulsive one, the one who loved to push boundaries, and sometimes she'd take things a little too far. I was usually the calmer, more cautious sibling, often trying to rein her in or clean up her messes. Our parents, bless their hearts, always tried to treat us equally, but even they acknowledged Clara had a mischievous streak. She was charming enough to usually get away with things, a master manipulator with a dazzling smile that could disarm anyone. As we got older, these pranks of hers became less about harmless fun and more about a bizarre form of attention, seeking, often at my expense. It started small, hiding my keys when I was late for work, replacing the sugar with salt in my coffee just before an important meeting, or accidentally spilling a drink on my favorite outfit before a date. I'd get annoyed, sure, but I always brushed it off, telling myself, that's just Clara. I even convinced myself it was her way of showing affection, a twisted sibling rivalry that was all part of our dynamic. I was naive, wasn't I? I believed she loved me, that deep down she would never intentionally hurt me. That illusion was shattered in the most terrifying way imaginable. It was a Sunday, a perfectly ordinary afternoon. I was at Clara's apartment, helping her set up her new smart home system. She'd been bragging about it for weeks, and I, being the more tech-savvy one, had offered to lend a hand. We were in her living room, me on my knees, wrestling with a tangle of wires behind her entertainment center, when she came in with 2 mugs of what she said was my favorite herbal tea. "Here, sis, you look like you could use this," she'd chirped, her voice dripping with an almost sickly sweetness. I thanked her, took a grateful sip, and continued to wrestle with the cables. The tea was warm, soothing, and I barely paid attention to it beyond that. We talked, we laughed, or rather, I laughed at her exasperated attempts to follow my instructions. The next thing I knew, I felt a strange tickle in my throat, almost like a piece of food had gone down the wrong pipe. I coughed, a small, polite cough at first, but it quickly escalated. The tickle became an irritation, then a burning sensation, and then a horrifying constriction. It felt like something was lodged firmly in my airway, blocking my breath. Panic began to set in. I gasped, trying to draw air, but only a wheezing sound came out. My vision blurred. I dropped the tools I was holding, clutching at my throat, my eyes wide with terror. Clara, who had been sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, looked up. "What's wrong?" she asked, a faint smirk playing on her lips. My mind was screaming for her to help me, but no sound would come out. I was turning blue. I could feel the edges of consciousness fraying. I remember stumbling to my feet, trying to point at my throat, my body racked with desperate, soundless coughs. Clara, instead of rushing to my aid, simply watched, that same unsettling smirk widening into a full, blown grin. "Oh, did the little joke work?" she giggled. "You should see your face. Priceless." Her words, muffled by the terrifying lack of oxygen, were like a punch to the gut. A joke. This was a joke. My own sister was watching me choke to death, finding it amusing. The betrayal, the shock, was almost as debilitating as the choking itself. In a last desperate act, fueled by pure adrenaline, I managed to stumble towards her, my hands still clawing at my throat. I think I was trying to show her how serious it was. Or maybe I was just instinctively reaching for help, even from her. But she recoiled, standing up and backing away as if I were some kind of monster. "Whoa, easy there, drama queen. It's just a bit of cayenne pepper," she exclaimed, still laughing. "I told you it would be funny to see if you'd notice. Cayenne pepper." My mind, though suffocating, latched onto that. Cayenne pepper? Why would cayenne pepper cause this much distress? I was having an anaphylactic reaction, I realized, even as darkness began to close in around me. I had a very minor allergy to nightshades, a family of plants that includes peppers, but it had always manifested as a mild rash or stomach upset, never anything life-threatening. The sheer quantity she must have put in, the concentrated dose, had triggered a severe allergic response. My airways were swelling shut. I was dying. Just as I felt myself collapsing, losing the fight for air, I heard a frantic banging on the apartment door. It was Clara's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet, elderly woman who often checked in on Clara. I must have made more noise than I realized. The door burst open, and Mrs. Henderson, taking in my collapsing form and Clara's horrified, now pale face, screamed. "Oh my heavens, what's happened?" Clara, startled out of her sick amusement, finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. The color drained from her face as she saw my convulsing body. It was only then, when an outsider was present, that the joke stopped being funny to her. Mrs. Henderson, bless her quick thinking, immediately started asking if I had any allergies. Clara, stammering, finally blurted out, "Cayenne pepper." She put cayenne pepper in her tea. She's allergic. The neighbor, thankfully, had some medical training from her youth as a nurse. She knew what to do. She immediately called 911, and while waiting for the paramedics, she started trying to induce vomiting and clear my airway. It felt like an eternity, but eventually the sirens wailed and help arrived. I woke up in the hospital, hooked up to what felt like 100 machines, my throat raw and aching, a tube still in my nose. My parents were there, their faces etched with worry. Clara was nowhere to be seen. My mother, tears streaming down her face, explained that I'd had a severe anaphylactic shock, and if Mrs. Henderson hadn't intervened, I wouldn't have made it. The doctors had given me epinephrine and corticosteroids, and I was lucky to be alive. They kept me for 2 days, monitoring my breathing and ensuring there were no lasting effects on my lungs. During that time, Clara didn't visit. She didn't call. My parents tried to defend her, saying she was in shock, and felt terrible, but I knew better. I knew she was hiding, avoiding the consequences of her actions. The thought gnawed at me, a bitter, resentful feeling that grew with every painful breath I took. How could she? How could she watch me nearly die and then just disappear? So that's the situation I was in, facing my own mortality at the hands of my sister, who still hadn't shown an ounce of genuine remorse. I was physically recovering, but emotionally I was a wreck. And the medical bills. They started rolling in, hundreds, then thousands of dollars for the ambulance ride, the ER visit, the specialists, the medications. My insurance covered a portion, but the out-of-pocket expenses were still astronomical. I was a freelancer, and this entire ordeal had cost me several weeks of work, pushing me deeper into financial stress. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go? Would you have confronted her directly? Or would you have sought a different kind of justice? When I was finally discharged, feeling weak but determined, I went home and started planning. I wasn't going to let this slide. This wasn't just a prank anymore. This was attempted assault, perhaps even attempted murder in my eyes, given her reaction. I couldn't understand how someone could be so callous, so utterly devoid of empathy. The first thing I did was gather every single piece of evidence. I had asked the hospital for all my medical records, every single bill, every doctor's note detailing my condition. I even got a statement from Mrs. Henderson describing what she saw. I then did something that might seem extreme, but I knew I needed to cover all my bases. I went back to Clara's apartment building, not to see her, but to speak with the building manager. I knew her unit had security cameras in the hallway, and I politely explained the situation, emphasizing the medical emergency. I was careful not to accuse Clara directly to the manager, just stated I needed the footage to document the timeline of events for my insurance claim. To my surprise, the manager was very cooperative and, after checking, confirmed there was indeed footage of the paramedics arriving and me being wheeled out on a stretcher. He even remembered seeing Clara's distraught face in the hallway afterward. I asked him to preserve that footage for me, which he agreed to do. Next, I compiled all the medical bills, every single one. The ambulance bill alone was a shocker. I added up the costs, including the lost wages from not being able to work. The total was staggering. Then came the final, crucial step. I drafted a formal, legal-looking letter. I wasn't a lawyer, but I had friends who were, and I'd picked up enough legal jargon over the years. The letter was polite but firm. It detailed the incident, citing the date, time, and location. It clearly stated that her joke had resulted in a severe, life-threatening allergic reaction, requiring emergency medical intervention. I attached copies of all the medical bills, highlighting the amount I was still responsible for. I also mentioned the preserved security camera footage and Mrs. Henderson's witness statement. The core of the letter was a demand for reimbursement for all my out-of-pocket medical expenses and lost wages, giving her a strict deadline to pay. I worded it carefully, avoiding direct threats, but implying very clearly that if she didn't comply, I would be forced to pursue legal action, which would include reporting the incident to the police and potentially pressing charges for assault. I signed it, not as her sister, but as victim of negligent act. Then, I sent it via certified mail, requiring a signature upon delivery. I wanted undeniable proof she had received it. The silence that followed was deafening. Days turned into a week. I half expected an angry phone call, a screaming match, an apology even, but nothing. Then, about a week before the deadline, she finally called. Her voice was trembling, not with remorse, but with fury. "What is this, my name? Are you seriously trying to extort me?" She shrieked. "This is insane. It was just a joke. You're going to ruin my life." I remained calm, my voice steady. "Clara, you nearly killed me. This was not a joke. This was a direct result of your reckless and dangerous actions. These are the bills I incurred because of you. Pay them." She launched into a tirade, accusing me of being heartless, of overreacting, of trying to financially cripple her. She even tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was destroying our family. I just listened, letting her rant, then calmly reiterated my demand. "The deadline is date. After that, I will proceed as outlined in the letter." She hung up on me. I fully expected her to ignore it, to try and call my bluff. But a few days later, a check arrived in the mail. It was for the full amount, every single penny. There was no accompanying note, no apology, just the check. It was a victory, but a hollow one. The money couldn't undo the trauma, couldn't erase the image of her smiling face as I choked. It couldn't fix our broken relationship. I deposited the check, paid off all my bills, and felt a strange mix of relief and profound sadness. My sister, the person I had loved and protected for so long, had shown her true colors. She valued a cruel joke and her own amusement over my life. And she only paid up when faced with legal repercussions, not out of any sense of guilt or empathy. We haven't spoken since. My parents, after much deliberation and witnessing my raw emotional pain, have sided with me, acknowledging the severity of Clara's actions. They tried to mediate, but I told them I needed space, that I couldn't forgive something so egregious, not yet, maybe never. Clara still tries to portray herself as the victim, telling mutual friends that I overreacted and financially ruined her for a silly prank. But Mrs. Henderson's testimony and the undeniable medical evidence speak volumes. I kept the certified mail receipt and all the communication as a permanent record. It's a constant reminder of how close I came to losing everything. This whole ordeal has taught me a painful lesson about boundaries, about recognizing toxic behavior, and about standing up for myself, even against family. I lost a sister that day, but I gained my life back and a fierce determination to protect it. I sometimes wonder if she ever truly understood the gravity of what she did, or if she's still convinced it was all just a big misunderstanding. I honestly don't know, and at this point, I don't think I care to find out. Like this video if you were on my side in this absolutely insane situation. Subscribe for more stories like this, where I share the most shocking, dramatic, and unbelievable events from Reddit. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Do you think I went too far, or was my response justified? I'll see you all in the next story.